Hello everyone, this is China Paradigm, where we, Dashi Consulting, interview seasoned entrepreneurs in China. Hello everyone, I'm Matthieu David, the founder of Dashi Consulting and its podcast, China Paradigms. Today I am with Shimi Azar. So you are the representative of Spotad in China. You are based in Beijing. And Spotad is, I'm reading because it's kind of complex, so I want to use the right words, a programmatic media buying platform built on proprietary data science technology. So you have all those words like AI, like programmatic advertisement, DSP, DMP, etc. in your presentation. And I think it would be very exciting to know more in China what you do, but also in the West. You have worked for very prestigious clients that we don't even understand how they can need an external resource like Instagram, not for China, but for the world. And you have worked for one of the case in the presentation you sent to me for the Israeli embassy to promote travel, as far as I remember. You have been in China yourself for 7 years. You have been working for the Israeli embassy for 1 or 2 years, maybe a bit more, managing social media. And then you joined Spotad in Beijing, representing them, also working with Chinese companies, with international companies in China, but also Chinese companies. That's another topic I'd like to understand is how big the momentum is for Chinese companies to go overseas and to use DSP, and the other hand, the other way around, to understand how international companies are using programmatic advertising in China. First of all, thank you very much for being with us so early. It's 8 a.m. in China. And feel free to tell us anything you would like to add on what I've just said.
Great. Thank you for having me. Good morning. It's early morning in Beijing, but as you see, maybe you can see behind me, the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day, no pollution, so I'm happy. Going back to what you presented, you talked a lot about a lot of things. I will start maybe with my personal story, how I got to China. A lot of people ask me, what are you doing in China? How did you get here? I was an exchange student between Hebrew University in Jerusalem and Peking University here in Beijing. I came for 1 semester, and as a lot of people that stayed in Beijing many years, their story is, I came to see China for 2 weeks and ended up staying 10 years. So something very similar happened to me. I came for 1 semester, ended up staying almost 8 years now. After I finished my studies here, I saw that the Chinese market is developing very fast. I remember a very funny incident when I was on campus 7 years ago, and one of my Chinese friends was holding a very funny looking phone, and I asked him, what is this phone? What is this brand? And he told me Xiaomi. And I laughed. I mean, first of all, the name was funny, and then the phone looked funny. And, fast forward 7 years later, this company is listed in Hong Kong. It's a huge company. I'm using their products. It's booming. This is what happened to the Chinese economy, mainly in tech, right? I'm sure people can find a lot of information on your website if it's in technology or any other aspect about how China has developed in the past few years. After graduation, I got a job offer, so I decided to stay. I worked for a project for Microsoft for about 2 years. After that, I felt a little bit more, something I want to do more with Israel. So this is what you mentioned. I joined the Israeli embassy and managed their social media, the Weibo account, the Tencent WeChat account, the website, etc. That gave me, that basically gave me a clue of what the Israeli companies wish to do in China. And this is how I found Spotad. More and more back in 2015, more and more Israeli companies that develop technology mainly for the American market, because the Israeli market is too small, right? We have 8 million people. So most of the tech companies are developing their products for the international market. But when you develop your product for the international market, it's not necessarily means it's good for the Chinese market. It's not, right? You have to go through a lot in order to have your product customized to the Chinese market. This is where Spotad decided to hire me, and it's been now 3 years at the company. I joined them at the beginning of 2016. Before I
I
joined,
understand.
yeah, you have,
Yeah,
yeah.
one question I have actually on you talking about the fact that the solution was not adapted for China. Does it mean that the first thing you had to do was to adapt the product for China that was part of your mission, or it was more in a sales position for you?
It was everything. From the beginning, it was in order to register the company, in order to open a business bank account, in order to, of course, localize the system we're using, hire local staff, working with local partners. Everything had to be done. It was a long and stressful journey, but we made it. It took us about half a year to register the company, open a Chinese entity, open a Chinese bank account, and most importantly, to have the approval from the government to operate a server infrastructure here in China. So this is 2016. Data was less kind of an issue, but starting last year, you could see what happened in the US and Europe. Starting last year, data became very sensitive. Storing data, sharing data became very, very sensitive. But we were lucky to have to get all the approvals already in 2016.
I see. I see.
Now, I was hired to an industry I was not familiar with, EdTech, advertising technology. I did some social media, but it doesn't really count. The industry by itself is huge. I was not even aware of the industry. A lot of people are not aware of the industry, of the existence of EdTech. A lot of people, when they're surfing the web on their phones or playing games or using apps and see advertisement, I don't think they think a lot about what's the technology behind this ad, this video ad or their banner ad or their native ad that they see on their phone. Actually, there is a whole industry behind this small ad that you see on the phone. We have so many different players. We have, of course, the client on one end, right? The demand. And then you have the supply, which are, it can be a publisher, which means an app developer that want to make money out of their app and sell the advertising space. And it can be, the biggest one is the ad exchange, where has many thousands of small publishers, medium-sized publishers, large publishers all together selling their inventory, selling their advertising space. So it's a whole world. I think that it's getting more and more familiar. There are some events. There are big brand agencies that could not kind of afford to avoid using this technology. All the biggest brands, all the biggest agencies in the world today, if it's Ogilvy, if it's OMG, all the biggest agencies are using AdTech in one way or another.
One question I always ask before we actually go more deeply into the business is, what is the current size of your business? Size could be revenues, could be number of clients, could be number of people in your team. To give an idea to the people who are listening to us, where does Spotad stand in terms of development? At which stage?
Right. So you mentioned a little bit before we started the video about the year we were established. So it's officially 2013, but back then we were creative company, which means that we were creating the banners or the video ads for other clients. But very fast, we realized that the big money is not in creating the ads, the creatives, is by serving them. This is where we started working. We hired developers and we started working on building our own technology. Now, this is very important. We'll maybe talk a little bit about this later, but in this industry, there are a lot of companies with no technology. if it's a big agency, it's okay, but there are a lot of small affiliates. There are a lot of companies that works on arbitrage and just, kind of like the middlemen. They don't really have any technology. Spotad is very different. We developed our technology for over a year back then. Since then, since 2015, we obviously developed more and more features. We improved our system. We improved our technology. More importantly, we listen to what our clients need, and according to their needs, we improved the platform. Going back to what you said about size, so everything in our programmatic world is automated, which means that if in media buy world, you need people to sit and buy the advertising space manually, our technology allows an algorithm, basically, a technology to do all the media buy automatically. So what you need to do is to better understand your client needs. You need, like a car, like you need fuel, in our case is data. You need a lot of data, the more the better. And once you take this data and you implement in our system, in our technology will know to reach the right client, or the more probable client that will click the ad and use your product. It takes me to, you mentioned AI, it takes me to an AI feature that we added to the system last year, a year and a half ago, which learns user behavior. It can, in milliseconds, decide if I want to buy the ad space from the publisher or I don't want to. How does it do it? Using data. Okay, in millisecond, before everything happens in millisecond in the programmatic world, right? So if you separate media buy and programmatic, in media buy, many cases, a big client goes, let's say Nike goes to CNN, they give them $1 million, display Nike ads on CNN for 1 week. Here is $1 million. Now, in this case, it's okay. Obviously, it's a big publisher, CNN, but who is seeing this ad? Maybe people that Nike is not relevant for them, right? So what we're trying to do is decide in real time, like a stock exchange, like buying and selling stocks, we decide if to buy the ad slot or not, according to the data we get, in everything in milliseconds.
Understood. Going back on my question, on the size of your business, the numbers I have is 25 software engineers and data scientists, 20 billion impressions daily from 15 global exchanges, and you're able to analyze the behavior of 200 million profiles. That's what I have from your PPT. Would you mind sharing a bit more about the size in terms of revenues? First, is it correct, what I just said, or is it to be updated?
Yeah, it's correct. Secondly, it's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Secondly, would you be able to elaborate on other metrics like number of clients or revenues to give a sense to the audience of where you are?
I can't obviously share the revenues in exact numbers. I can say it's in millions of dollars. This is what I can say.
Okay, more than 1 and less than 10.
Yes. So the company is managed to stay at the same size, more or less, in the past few years. We hired some staff. We opened, obviously, the China business. We opened the New York office. At the same time, we had, in this industry, big companies, big technology companies going bankrupt because they got to a size that they couldn't become profitable anymore and just lost a lot of business. This is also something I kind of like wish, when we were talking about the Chinese market, wish to kind of like share of what's happening here in the Chinese market. But yes, if we're a small medium-sized company that's being very, let's say, abnormal in this industry, because we managed to keep the balance between growing too big and then going kind of like out of business, and between shutting down the business, which happened to many companies in our industry.
Have you raised money?
Sorry?
Have you raised money?
Yes, we had.
Okay.
Yeah, we had in 2017, we raised about $2.5 million. We have investors in Hong Kong, private venture capital that invested in Spotad.
I see. Okay. Understood. The number I mentioned, like 25 software engineers and data scientists, very easy to understand. But streaming 20 billion impressions daily from 15 global exchanges is not very easy to understand. Could you help us to understand what does it mean, 20 billion impressions? Because in this world of data, when you talk about million, billion, we have no idea if it's big or small. I have another number I like to get also an understanding is 200 million profiles. You analyze the behavior online. It's a lot, 200 million, but on the other hand, Facebook is like 2 billion profiles. So it's only 10% of Facebook which is analyzed in some way. So could you give us a better understanding what it means 20 billion impressions daily? You stream, and does it stream mean you place ads, or does it mean you analyze? I'd like to understand really what it means. And secondly, 200 million profiles. Why 200 million? And why not like 3 billion like Facebook plus some other networks? Because you have included Facebook ad exchange in your partner. So we could imagine that the 2 billion from Facebook of profiles are, no, I'm incorrect. So you're going to correct me. I'm going to listen to you. Okay.
Correct. Facebook has no ad exchange. Facebook is a closed environment. They're not sharing data. They're not allowing any external DSP or any ad tech player to buy their ad space. They make more than 90% of the revenue from their ads, and they're not sharing with anyone.
Would you mind before we go further, DSP, because I'm afraid some people get lost. DSP means data selling platform. So as far as I understand,
platform.
Sorry?
Demand side platform.
Oh, demand side platform.
Yes, correct. So you have in the industry what I said before. You have the demand side, which is the client, and you have the supply side, which is the ad exchange or the publisher. In the middle, you have a DSP, which brings a lot of clients that has demand to buy those advertising spots. And you have an SSP, which is the supply side platform, right? So a DSP in some cases will buy from the SSP. The SSP will have a few publishers connected to it and selling their inventory, their ad space.
Let's be specific to make sure that everyone is following us. So I have my own DMP as a company, like data managing platform, leveraging data from my clients. I have a lot of data, I have emails, they have the profile, their gender, and so on. But it's not enough. It's not enough for me to target them online on display. And I know that my clients are very close to the New York Times. They read the New York Times. So I'm going to actually try to reach an SSP, right, which is owning the inventory of New York Times. You will tell me if I'm right or if I'm incorrect afterward. And in order to get access to this SSP, because maybe New York Times is not big enough to do itself the sales, you are going to go through a DSP to be able to target on specific SSP the profile you want to target. So SSP is the displays, the inventory where you can put ads. DSP is making possible for you to buy the space, and DMP is actually leveraging your own data. And then after you can merge data from a DSP and a DMP together in order to target well the audience. Tell me where I was incorrect. Okay, Perfect. Thank you.
The only issue is that the New York Times is not small; it's huge, and I'm not sure they're working independently. And all those big publishers, all those big names, usually have their own in-house kind of like media department that sell their inventory, their ad space. Those big clients have to be very careful because this is what we call in the industry the ad display, this ad security. Both an advertiser and both a publisher has to be very careful. An advertiser doesn't want his ads to be displayed in websites that have like bad content, right? Let's say, I don't know, Nike doesn't want to be displayed in a website that sells alcohol, for example, right? So this might be an issue. At the same time, the New York Times wouldn't like, I don't know, a very cheap and like shady maybe product, maybe a dating app, right? New York Times did not want to be connected to any dating apps, so he will not allow dating apps to buy ad space on its website. So you have to be very, very careful. In our industry, the programmatic world is a little bit different. The programmatic world is what you just mentioned, that everything is, the structure you mentioned is correct. The advertiser goes to the DSP goes to an SSP or an ad exchange and display the ad, right? Using data from a DMP. This is kind of like more or less how the structure works. Everything is being done automated, as I mentioned before. So you don't need a huge amount of people to do the media buy manually. Going to the stock market exchange example that I introduced, a very big feature of programmatic is the price. How much you're willing to pay to have your ad displayed on this publisher. So I mentioned Nike gives $1 million to CNN, display our ads for a week. What if I tell Nike, I don't need $1 million, give me $500,000, I can find the exact same inventory spot and save you $500,000. What I'm doing in the programmatic world is I'm going out with my ad to bid on the advertising space, and in real time, I'm displaying my bid. I'm willing to pay $0.50, 60 cents, $1 top to display the ad because I feel that the client that is now watching the ad might click it. So the more probability that I feel that the client will click the ad, I will bid a little bit higher, right?
Calling that programmatic.
Exactly.
Advertising. That's what you specifically. Going back on your numbers, which are for me not very easy to understand. 20 billion impressions which are streamed.
Right. So we talked about SSP. We are actually not working with SSPs. We're working with ad exchanges. And ad exchange is the next level. An ad exchange will have thousands of publishers and maybe a few SSPs as well selling their inventory in the ad exchange. We have Google Ad Exchange that's open for programmatic media buy. We have big players in the market like Rubicon, like Mopub, Pubmatic, a lot of maybe names that are not familiar with people that are not aware of the industry. But if you are part of AdTech, you know those names. Those are really big players in the market. Each one of them is a whole infrastructure, is a whole a place that you can buy basically inventory everywhere in the world. If I have a client now that wants to display ads in Russia or in Japan or Korea or America or Brazil, those ad exchanges will have inventory in those geos. Okay, so once you're connected to 10 or 15 of the biggest ad exchanges, you basically cover the whole world. We have the advantage that we are connected directly with the Chinese ones, and this is a story to be told by itself because it was not easy. I think in my first week in Beijing, I already met with Baidu. They have their own ad exchange, which means they have a lot of Chinese apps connected to their exchange and selling their inventory. The integration files, everything was in Chinese. We had to translate it to our developers. Even though they have a common language, right, the coding, they still needed some, couldn't really understand a lot of things. So we had to translate everything for them. At the same time, for our Chinese clients, we translated the system to Chinese, so it will be easier for them. On the business side, we open a Chinese bank account because I had clients that I approached. One of them is very familiar, very famous, but unfortunately is going out of business, is the OFO, the shared bikes. I met them, I think was about February or March 2017, where they're in like full-scale war with Mobike, and they needed more users. So what they do, they advertise.
In case people watch the video in 1 year or 2 years and Ofo is not known anymore, this is a competitor of Mobike, and it was very big, and now, yeah, they have been in trouble for some time. Okay, I see. So you worked for them as a foreign company. I guess it's very unique.
And we had the meeting and everything was okay. I displayed our technology, I displayed our solutions, and they were okay. But then at the end of the meeting, they asked me, can you receive renminbi? And it was like a funny question because you're like, gave your pitch, they said, okay, everybody's happy. Now, if I was an international company that don't have any presence in China, don't have a bank account in China, I can't do business with them, right? And this means losing millions because the budgets were in millions for OFO. They had a big account. But fortunately, we did have a bank account, and I was smiling and said, sure, we can receive your RMB. This is kind of like a story. We do work with Chinese clients that can pay in Hong Kong, US dollars, or even other places in the world. Talking about clients, so we work on 3 different business lines, which is first China in, which means bringing a foreign advertiser to advertise in China. We did it with a few game developers. We did it in 2016 with Uber, which was just on the news for the IPO, which was not very successful, unfortunately. The second business was China, which means that we are a Chinese company. We registered in China. We have Chinese staff. We have a bank account. We have servers. Let's compete in the Chinese market. And as I mentioned, OFO, we worked with OFO in China. We compete with Chinese DSPs, some of them of hundreds of people, and managed to get a budget from them. So this was also very, very impressive. The third one is that something that you mentioned. How do Chinese clients see going outside, China out? This, unfortunately, on programmatic is still kind of, let's say, more downs than ups. It's still something that it's not common. 99% of the Chinese clients, the Chinese advertisers, are using Facebook and Google mainly.
Okay.
To take kind of like a number of ad tech as a whole, if you put programmatic in and traditional media buy, the Facebook and Google take about 70% of all the ad revenue in the world, in the global market. In China, so this is why we're kind of like not currently doing China out. We do have some meetings with potential clients that want to promote their products. I can say names like Huawei, Vivo, and Xiaomi. Those are mainly brands that believe first in offline advertising. They believe in first open a shop in some country and then hear about you. But they are considering doing more digital. They are considering doing more programmatic or media buy. So I'm positive that this will happen sometimes, hopefully soon. In sense of the Chinese market in the supply side. So I mentioned Baidu. We also work with Tencent. And another...
The supply side meaning the ad exchange and SSP.
Correct. So Baidu has an ad exchange, Tencent has an ad exchange, and more interestingly, it's Bytedance that took over the world. TikTok, sorry.
TikTok, yeah.
And the company grew very fast, very big, and they have their own ad exchange now. And what we see is that a lot of the businesses of programmatic is disappearing or going a little bit down. Again, mainly because of the reasons that I mentioned earlier in the conversation, because companies grew very, very big, and then suddenly they don't have enough business, so they had to kind of like shrink, or in some cases go bankrupt. Another player, the international market, is Amazon. Amazon is also growing very, very fast, and they now have their own ad exchange. They want to make money, same as Facebook and Google. They want to make money out of advertisement, and they just launched their ad exchange, I think, in the beginning of this year or end of last year.
Interesting, because Google put money in JD.com in order to compete with Amazon, because they know that Amazon is competing with Google on ads. So that's consuming actually with the ad exchange that Amazon is building. Interesting. I'm a bit stubborn, and I like to really understand what does these 20 billion impressions mean. Streaming 20 billion impressions daily. Why I'm insisting on it is that because for me, I don't connect this number and this streaming word with anything we talked about before. What does it mean streaming 20 billion impressions daily from 15 global exchanges for Spotad?
Right. So what is an impression? An impression is a user opened the app or a website and saw an ad. This counts as an impression. Okay? This is an impression. When you're connected to 10 ad exchanges, the number of impressions of each ad exchange is enormous, right? So, for example, let's take Baidu, right? Let's say Baidu has a billion impressions a day, or I don't know, 200 million impressions a day, which means that they have ad display 200 million times a day to all the people in China. So I can be, I don't know, I'm using an app and I see on average, I don't know, 20 to 50 ads a day when I'm playing my phone, right?
Okay.
You take all those numbers together, and this is the inventory that they offer us to buy. Baidu tells me, I have 200 million impressions a day, come and bid on it. Okay, now
so
obviously
streaming.
Sorry?
When you say streaming, that means you check out the inventory and the price, right? That's what you mean by streaming, right? That you see all those placements, and when you say streaming, what does it mean? Does it mean that you analyze the ad? Do you mean that you extract the price of it? Does it mean you display ad on those 20 billion?
Right. So we're not displaying. Obviously, we're not buying all of it, because a lot of it is useless for us. So what is our technology is doing, for example, put aside the technology. In China, for example, you have first-tier cities, second-tier cities, and third-tier cities, correct? A lot of advertisers are not even interested in the third-tier cities. So that takes 40% of all the impressions. Some advertisers are not interested in Android. They want to target only iPhone users. So that takes another 50% of the inventory. So before even going to the technology, out of those 200 million available, we bid only maybe about 20 million, right? Out of this 20 million, this is where our technology kicks in. We use the data to see if the user that's now opening the app and going to see an ad is a user we want to display the ad. We use it in a lot of different ways, and usually we have our database, our own DMP, which consists of a few million, hundreds of millions users, where we have tags. We tag the users. So we obviously don't know who you are. We don't know your name. We don't know where you live, right? But your IDFA, the unique code of your phone, is available. So to this unique code, we can say very basic information. We can say which city you live. We know which phone you're using. And maybe in some behavioral, you downloaded a lot of gaming apps. So we can tag you as a gamer. I can tag you as a Beijinger, gamer, try to guess your age and things like that. So this kind of information allows us to, out of this 20 million impressions that we get daily, the inventory that we get daily, how many of them we actually think that are gamers for our game developer that wants to get more users, and go after them. This is kind of how it works. Now, we work with different clients from very different industries. We have e-commerce, a lot of China. Traveling obviously is always a big, big clients. You have gaming, which is I think number one currently. A lot of gamers, a lot of game developers, a lot of Chinese game developers actually are doing very well. So this is the impressions. This is basically the number that we can buy a day. It doesn't necessarily mean we do it. We don't want to do that. It's kind of useless. It's kind of exactly the opposite of what we want to do. We want to be more targeted. Okay, but this is the inventory available.
Okay, got it. Then the other number you mentioned in your presentation is 200 million profiles. What do you mean by 200 million profiles? You analyze in terms of behavioral analysis. I mean, what does it mean 200 million? Why 200 million? Why not 2 billion? Why not 20 million?
So this is, I guess, the advantage that big companies have, like you mentioned, Facebook and Google. They can process more, they can work with more, they get more information because they have more users. We can get users once they maybe click or install an app we had, and we can get their code, their IDFA number from their phone and store them in our database and say, oh, this phone downloaded a game, downloaded 3 games, is a gamer. We put him as one of our 200 million database. Now this PPT, it's from, I guess, the beginning of the year. The number might change. I need to talk with our data team to see the numbers for today. But we are still, again, we're still 35 people, 40 people.
I understand. Okay, I got it now. The 200 million profiles actually are within your own database. And this is the part which the part which is proprietary to you, right? In terms of database inventory. So you say that you have 200 million IDFA, right? What to say IDFA to know which phone it is, to identify which phone, and then you can, based on this, analyze much more the profile. As you said, it's a gamer, not a gamer. So this is proprietary to you. The 20 billion impressions you stream are not proprietary to you because you stream from ad exchanges and SSP, but the 200 million profiles is proprietary. Am I correct?
Correct. And you mentioned earlier in the conversation a DMP, which is an external data provider that the advertiser works with, and we, in many cases, can use their data. So this number, the 200 million, doesn't mean a lot. We get most of our data from third-party data providers. They enrich our system and allows us to do better targeting.
I see. Okay. Talking about the differences between China and the West. I feel when we talk about China and the internet, Baidu and other players, the topic which is coming very often is that it's not very reliable. You pay and you don't know really from what you pay, or you pay but actually it's a bit fake. What's your feedback on this? I don't know if some players say that because they want to complain. That happens sometimes. People like to complain, or if it's a reality. What's your feeling compared to Google and other players?
Correct. So let's put it out. It's called fraud. There's a lot of fraud that happens here. Let me put it this way. There is fraud, but if you choose to avoid it, you can not easily avoid it, but you can avoid it. There are companies in the industry that's doing the verification, and they're doing the fraud detection, and you can integrate with those companies to ensure that you're not buying this fake inventory, this fake traffic. Some companies will avoid working with those companies because for them it's losing business. We obviously work with them. We obviously scan we scan the traffic, the inventory that we get. We make sure we are not buying anything fake. On top of this, there is in the past year or two, there is a big trend that's going viewability. There are companies that ensure the advertiser that their ad that they bought an ad space was viewable, which means human, or at least it was shown somewhere, and not like, as you mentioned, something fake. It's, paying $1 million and no one saw your ad. Right? You say, yeah, I displayed the ads, but no one actually saw it. So there are companies that allow you to do so. Going back to 2016, we worked only with ad exchanges because of the reason that we believe and we see that ad exchanges like Baidu and Tencent will not sell you fake traffic, and they have their own internal tools to detect if there are any problems with the traffic. Once you work with an SSP, which is smaller and maybe not as reliable as those ad exchanges, then you have the risk, because the SSP wants money, obviously, and they will sell you everything. They will not even check what they're selling, right? I had incidents where an advertiser, a sales manager of an advertiser in China, asked me to buy fake traffic because they need to spend budgets, right? So he cared about his own like commission probably. And he said, oh, I have like $500,000 to spend. I need to spend it now. The more, the better. And I don't care if it's being displayed or not. So obviously the answer was, sorry, we don't do that. Even if we want to buy fake traffic, we can't. We don't do that. But it happens. It definitely happens. Now, comparing to the West, a lot of people ask me about the West. I'm managing the Chinese operations in the past 3 years. We did have campaigns overseas, but not in a scale for me to be an expert on the West and share the insight from there.
So for us to also understand, how do you charge with your software? Do you charge in percentage of the money spent? Do you charge as a retainer every month? How do you charge your clients?
Percentage of the media spend. If an advertiser spend $1 million in our platform for 1 month, then we will take a percentage. It can be 10%, 15%, 20%, depends on a few factors. If, for example, the client used the self-serve options, which means we give them access to our platform. They have a media team in-house and they are using the platform to do the media buy. Or if he doesn't and he wants us to do it for them and just send them reports, we can also do this, but we will charge a little bit extra.
Okay. My feeling is that 10-50% seems pretty high actually in advertisement. Is it higher than, let's say, SEM to manage a budget and spend it directly on Baidu? I feel it's a bit higher than agencies do when they spend the budget on Baidu for SEM. I had more in mind like 5%, I guess. Is it correct for me to say that?
In the DSP wars is actually 10% is very low, actually.
It's very low. Okay.
The average will be 15 and up. Some companies will charge even 20%. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, think about what you're getting for this 10%. You're getting a technology that helps you save much more than this 10%, right? Not only save.
Sure. Yeah. Is there a minimum budget to spend on the platform? Otherwise, you wouldn't take the client?
Yes, of course. I get some requests of opening an account for $500 or $1,000. And for those, I mean, it's not that we kind of like, don't want the money, but it's for us to open an account to train the client on the platform, and the time we spend on it doesn't make it worthwhile for us. So we do have a minimum. We try to kind of like educate the clients that they will have to spend money if they want to have results. A lot of if we're talking about the difference between China and the global market, on the let's take the client side. We talked a little bit about the supply side, right? The ad exchanges. If we're going to the other side, if we're going to the advertiser, we see that in the US, in Europe, clients understand they need to spend money to see results, right? A client, if I go to a foreign client now and I tell them you have to have a $10,000 budget for testing. Testing means that we buy the traffic, we create AI algorithms, we implement all the data, and then after maybe 2-3 weeks, you start seeing results. In China, it doesn't work like that. In China, the Chinese clients wants to see a result as soon as possible and with very low budgets, right? If I had a client that spent $500 in 2 days and then he sent me a message complaining, I don't see as many installs as I wished for, I answer, what did you expect? I told you in the beginning, we need time and we need budget. It's not magic, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about a lot of data. Sorry?
Yeah. For the audience who is listening to us to understand what you are saying is that in order to know what your audience is, who your clients are, where they are, what they like, you need to display on different SSP ad exchanges. You need to display also different formats. And that actually is the thing which is, I feel, very tricky in your industry. The issue may not come from the SSP or the ad exchange. It may come because of the format, because of what's written on the display, because of the message. So you have to certainly do a lot of A/B testing as well as the content on the creative side, which was your original work, original business scope at Spotad. So I feel that there is a bit more than simply the display itself. There's a creative as well to try. In order to elaborate a bit more, what's the minimum budget you would suggest? Let's say a min-max budget to test programmatic advertisement. And let's say when you have used like up to 20,000 US and you cannot conclude anything, you don't see a momentum, that means you don't know how to do, or your creative is not good enough. Can you give us a bit of ideas of how to interact with programmatic advertising in terms of budget?
Of course. So it depends on different geos. Traffic in the US can cost 5 times more as in China. So the budgets are changing accordingly. I would say in China, if a client will give us a test budget between $5,000 to $10,000 and will give us time to process the data, in 2-3 weeks, we will be able to know what's working and what's not working. All this A/B testing that you just mentioned, our system knows how to process this automatically, which means the A/B testing, we put, for example, on one campaign, 2 banners and 2 video ads and 1 native ad, correct? So we have this list and start buying. After 3-4 days, when the system is getting all the data, how many clicks the creative get, how many clicks the banner get, how many creatives the video got, and what was the price, right? The system by itself knows how to optimize. Optimize means, oh, I see that the video is getting much more clickables, much more popular. I will allocate more of the budget toward the video. Everything automatically.
How many displays, if I want to work with you for 10,000 US, how many displays and how many videos, how much content I have to create for you, and in which format? If I want to work with you tomorrow, I want to get ready tomorrow to work with you with Spotad, what do I need to bring to you?
We have kind of like an Excel sheet that we share with the clients to have all their information, where they type their geos, which cities, which countries they want to display ads, ad sizes. We follow the ad sizes that are very common in all of the world. In China, it's a little bit different. Some of the ad sizes are not available in the West, but in China, you can see those kind of maybe weird sizes. And we give them a list of, sorry?
The display size, right? Sometimes banner, and this size is very standard actually in the world. especially in the West, but China is a little bit different, what you say. Okay.
Correct. China is, it's following some of the guidelines from the West, but not only. So we will have all the ad sizes as an option for the client. Most of the times we run a campaign with at least minimum 3 different sizes, minimum in the beginning, to see what's working and what's not working. And this is again, the more the better. If a client provides video creative, banner creative, obviously it's makes our lives much easier. We do have an in-house graphic designer. A lot of the companies in our industry are working with, they have a creative library that they create their own creatives. Something that's became very popular in the past year is playable ads for gamers. So the ad will basically be a mini game that you can play, right? And then if you are happy with it, you just click and download the game itself, right?
Is it the difference with China? Is it the difference between West and China gaming, or it's global?
It's global. In the sense of gaming, yeah. I think e-commerce is very strong in China. A lot of different clients are spending a lot of money. The e-commerce infrastructure here in China grew significantly. So it's no more only Alibaba and JD. There are other players, Yahongshu and Wang Yi Kaola, and a lot of even fresh vegetables and fruits apps that are becoming huge and have budgets to spend on media buy. So we see a lot of e-commerce clients.
I see. If I want to work with Spotad tomorrow, I need to prepare like 5 different ads and in different formats, 3, 5, something like this, right? It's enough to test.
Or you can give us one PSD and we will have our in-house graphic designer create it for you. We have one in the West. We have one in China that we work with that helps us.
But then there is a big variable of the creative, the content. How do you make sure that the test has been run on a good creative enough, good content enough? Because you're a software company, so it shouldn't be your work to assess if the creative is good enough or the content is good enough. But still, you are running a test on those ads where a very strong and very important variable is the content, the creative. How do you deal with that? Is it sometimes you have some feedback from the software to say none of them are working? It suddenly the creative, which is a problem. How does it work?
Okay, so this is a very interesting topic actually, because some of the advertisers are very sensitive regarding their creatives. I'm going back to 2016. My first client here was Uber, and Uber has everything created in-house. They have their font, they have the colors, and we were not allowed to change whatsoever. If we want to make a small change, even in size, we had to send back the creative, tell them we need this in a different size. They will work on it in-house and then send it back to us. So those kind of clients, we can't really do anything. We're, as you mentioned, a technology company. We get this we are last in the funnel, right? You have the advertiser, it goes to an agency, the agency creates all the materials, give it to us, and we serve it. So we are already past the creative. Yet some companies don't work with the agencies. They come directly to us if it's maybe medium, small size, and they don't have any in-house creative graphic designers. So they ask us, can you create something for us? What we do is have the graphic designer come up with the best solution, get approval from the client. In most cases, they say, okay, let's go with this. And as I mentioned, we take a few different options and see what is more popular, what's gaining more clicks, and go with that. So it's also, as you mentioned, A/B testing. We also do in the creative.
I see. Talking about differences between the West and China, there's always a question I have regarding to ads, advertisement. It's censorship. we are in a country where you have an organization and administration censoring some of the content. How does it work in this industry where actually you can display very easily content all over the web? Do you have some guidelines to follow? I feel it's a mystery for a lot of people. It looks like it's very open, but on the other hand, there's a limit.
Right. So this is a creative approval process. Some of the ad exchanges are very sensitive, are very strict. I can give you Tencent as an example, where we upload a creative in our platform, it's not approved automatically. What happens is the creative is being sent to Tencent. Now, I don't know if they have a manually check or kind of like AI automated check, but it takes about a couple of hours for us to get approval. Okay, so they actually check each one of the creatives that we upload to the system to check that there is nothing wrong with it. Okay,
yeah, Facebook is doing that as well.
It doesn't. Sorry.
Facebook is doing it as well. I mean, I don't know if you're because you're more familiar with China than the West, but you cannot display the ad immediately with Facebook too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but this is media buying. It's a little bit different. It's not programmatic. Facebook does not.
I see. Yeah. Right.
The whole idea of programmatic is like everything is like moving fast. That being said, you talked about China and censorship. It's not only that. Of course, there are some rules, and we obviously obey the rules. But some of them are also applicable to the West because, for example, adult content or alcohol, drugs, any kind of illegal content is forbidden. In China, you have obviously, everywhere. In China, you have the additional, government-sensitive content that you're not allowed to display, obviously. On the ad exchanges like Tencent that I said they're very strict. Put all those laws aside, even if the creative doesn't display the game's name that the user can see very clear, it can also be disqualified. So they're very, very strict. They want all the ads to be displayed on their apps, very nice and clear and good. They don't want bad content. So this is how they control it. Baidu, on the other side, is much more flexible. They approve the creative. So how it works, if I have a new client, I'm going to Baidu platform online. I create an account for this advertiser. If it's a well-known advertiser, it will be on their whitelist and will be approved automatically. That means that all the creatives from these advertisers will be approved automatically, and I can start a campaign in 1 minute. Not a problem. If it's not on their whitelist, they will ask for documentation, will ask for the business license and all sort of kind of like things. And then they will go through a process and then they will approve it. And then again, after they approve it, all the creatives are okay. Good to go.
Okay. Understood.
I
wanted to...
Sorry, yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Another thing you may be not aware of, but there is a lot of, we talked about fake traffic, but there is a lot of also companies that are doing fraud in sense of changing the redirection, which means that they pretend that they work with a client, display the ad, but once you try to click on it, the ad will redirect you to something else. Okay?
I see.
So this is a very big issue, but again, it's like the mouse and the cat game. We always have a problem, and there is suddenly a company that, being established with technology in order to prevent this problem. So, but I'm happy to say that I see in the past, at least the past year, that there is much less fraud. There are more safety in programmatic media buy, and there are so many companies that doing the verification, viewability, and advertisers can feel much safer in the programmatic world today.
Okay. Sorry for the now. My printer, I don't know, it's waking up. I don't know what's happening. A bit of noise in the background. I wanted to. I looked at your print screens in the presentation, which is showcasing your software. There are different lines, and each line seems to correspond to a campaign. So the campaign is designed by the user itself, and is designed by which kind of content, what kind of objective is it, CPM, number of views, maximum bid, and so on. And also, as far as I remember, so you have the name of the campaign, you have the maximum budget, and then it's giving you the result, impression, and so on. That's how you can A/B test basically, because you see the different version of different ads. Is it the way it works?
The same as creative, it's very depends on the advertiser. Some of the advertisers come with exactly what they want and give you everything and said, we want this. Some of the clients will come and discuss the campaign with us and ask us, according to your experience, what works better, what should we do, how much budget, etc. Some of them gives us free hand and just give us money and do what you know how to do best, and that's it. So it's very, very different.
Okay.
Different clients
Okay.
have different demands.
Okay, I think the intelligence you put in software is also to say, hey, this campaign is outperforming the other one. You should put more budget into it, and so on. Is it the intelligence you provide? I saw some pop-up coming on the screen. I mean, the screen you shared on the top right.
Correct. So this is something that Spotad is working on, is something that we will implement soon. We got a lot of feedback from our clients, and we always work to improve our system. We want to get it to the point where everything is being automated and everything will require one click. We want to have a process where the client comes with goals, and our system automatically will give them the solution to reach to those goals. Along the way, our system will have some maybe issues, and they will have pop-ups telling the client, okay, look, we need to change this and this in order to improve the performance. Okay, so it's still fully automated, but also kind of like interacting with the clients, informing the clients what needs to be done, and just getting the approval. But everything is fully automated. You can look at it as kind of a, let's say, a Google Maps. When you put a destination, say I want to get from Beijing city center to the Great Wall, the map will show you the best way to get there, right? Yeah. Along the way, there might be some car accidents, traffic jams, so the system will offer you different ways to get to the wall. This is what we're trying to do in the programmatic world, and in our system, to have pop-ups that will tell the clients, okay, this happened, let's make this adjustments to improve the performance.
I see. It's still going to be already 1 hour of interview, so but I still have a couple of questions I want to ask you. So I'm going to be a bit faster on the last ones. You are talking about programmatic and prescriptive. Could you define what is a prescriptive advertising campaign? Let me
check. What I just said now with the Google example. This is the perspective. This is where the client gives us, I have $1 million budget. I want 100 new users. What is the best way to get it? Our system will give them the prescription. Yeah, exactly.
I see. And on your print screen, I have in front of me actually, so you have the campaign name, start date, label, the goal value, the strategy, you have a name for the strategy, and the exchange which corresponds to this campaign. I see. Okay, I understand. Yeah, lookalike audience. I think this word comes from Facebook with a lookalike campaign. And so a lot of people, what they don't realize that when you spend on Facebook, you have different way of spending the money. I know it's not an ad exchange, but you have a different way. So it's an inspiration to understand actually how programmatic can work and you can work. You can target very precise audience to say, I want to target Chinese people in New York. Fine, this is very targeting audience. You can upload your data, and that I want to talk about lookalike audience. You can upload your data, email, phone number, name of people, and say, hey, I want to target people who are similar to those ones. And Facebook acts like a brain. It will look at some parameters. Among all the parameters it can have, maybe thousands, even hundreds of thousands parameters they can write on every profile to find patterns and identify those patterns and target those people. You have written, so long story short, you have written in your PPT that you are doing lookalike audience. What is lookalike audience in China? I have struggled to find very similar tools as Facebook in China. I know Tencent is doing a little bit but not as powerful and easy to use as Facebook. When you talk about lookalike audience, could you elaborate a bit more?
Yes, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the talk about the DMP, which we have our own in-house, but we rely mostly on third-party DMPs. There is the biggest, after BAT, the biggest, so the problem with the BAT that they are not allowed to share data according to their strict rules and laws. Baidu and Tencent will not share any data with you. But there are some companies.
BAT stands for Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent.
Right, correct. There are companies that will, DMPs that do have data and they do sell it. I'll give you as an example. I'll give you as a campaign that we did for one of the airlines here in China, and they wanted to target university students. So for us, as first step, is to have the location. So what we can do actually very precisely is to target latitude and attitude. So what we do, we target areas that we know that there are a lot of universities. That's one.
Wow.
Okay, but other than that, that's already a lot of very precise targeting, but not perfect. What we want is to get more information about the user. What we can do, we go to the third-party DMP. They have a segment that calls students. How do they know that there are students? Probably those are users that download maybe educational apps or searched somewhere on studying abroad, etc. Right? Everything is being stored. And then they can enrich our kind of like bidding and saying, okay, we are using this data from the third party. We pay a little bit extra for this. The client pays a little bit extra, but then we can get to those users. So yeah, Facebook and Google allows it. You can also get it in programmatic. You can also have it in third-party data providers that will enrich your platform. So it's also possible in the programmatic world. Obviously, as mentioned before, Facebook and Google are huge. They control the advertisement market. But that doesn't mean that there is not enough room for more different type of technologies or different kind of companies to work in the ad tech as well.
I see. Okay, I see. A final question, so not specifically about China. You say in one of your slides, top source of traffic, and you mentioned InMobi, Baidu, Tencent. I don't have everything in mind. I'm not on the right slide here.
Yeah, those are the ad exchanges.
Those are the ad exchanges. But could you tell us? So in 2019, let's say we are close to June 2019. So already nearly 5 months of 2019 have been spent. Could you tell us what you see in terms of top sources of traffic, new momentum? You talked about Douyin. Clearly, we know that Douyin is getting momentum. Could you elaborate more?
So Bytedance, basically, the Jinri Toutiao is booming. As an ad exchange, it got a lot of business from advertisement before because they had the most popular news app in China, the Jinri Toutiao, right? This is their number one app for last year. But after Douyin took over the world, obviously they realized the potential of monetizing the app. Monetizing the app means displaying ads on the app, which is a free app, but again, you have to watch ads. And they grew very, very, very big. Every client that wants to grow in China, not only China, but in this case, specifically in China, will try to get their ads on this app. In order to do so, they will have to contact Bytedance advertisement department and negotiate deals on displaying ads. They have, like Facebook, similar to Facebook and Google, they have their own in-house ad, kind of like ad exchange. that you can log in and start buying ads. I'm sure it's a little bit different than Facebook, as we discussed different rules, different regulations, also different of what the local clients would like to see in sense of content of the app, of the ads. But all in all, Bytedance is definitely what I will say, which is the biggest player coming up this year in China.
Okay.
And
What do you predict?
And we, as Spotad, we are aware of this, and we got their integration files, and we are now working on it in order to integrate and allow our clients to buy advertising space on Bytedance.
I see. What do you predict for the rest of the year until 2020? What do you think is going to change in the landscape?
I hope, we also discussed this, I hope that more Chinese clients will try to use programmatic for China out campaigns. I think games will definitely use it. Google and Facebook do have a lot of inventory, but they don't have 100% of the inventory. So it's very important to the game developers to reach more and more potential clients, and they will use programmatic in order to do so. This is what I predict. This is what I hope that the Chinese, at least, ecosystem will go towards. More and more similarity between the West and China. If in 2016, I remember one of our co-founders coming to China to one of the conferences in 2016. And after the conference, he told me, look, China is 2 years behind the West in sense of how they understand the technology, how they approach the technology, etc. But to say today, China has reached the West. They're doing a lot of the similar, and even maybe in some cases more than what you can find in the West. Yeah, I think that an example will be Amazon and JD. I know JD and Alibaba as ad exchanges were in the market way before Amazon was, and offered their potential clients a lot of data they have, right? I had a meeting with JD, and I was very impressed of their system, because think about all the data they have. They have all those people searching for a product, right? So they can target very precisely. They can target female between the age of 20 and 30 that searched shampoo in the past 2 weeks, right? I want to target this user. It's a lot of good data. So I'm guessing Amazon is doing the similar to Alibaba and JD right now. So yeah, a lot of the, of your users, I don't know if you talked about it in the past or not. If China used to copy the West and then moved to copy and improving, and now moving to innovate, so we're definitely in a space that the Chinese are trying to innovate, and we see the West copying from China, right? We already reached this.
Yeah, and still in a very different way, JD and Alibaba doing it as much as Google and Facebook do in the West, which are e-commerce on one side and the search engine and social media on the other side. Thank you very much, Shimi, for your time. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Congratulations for everything you achieved, starting developing a tech company in China. I feel it's not easy because the environment is very, very different. So congratulations for the integration in the Chinese ecosystem. As a comment, we know some very big companies, listed companies, which have had time to make it in China and to create a network and so on. I'm not going to mention names. I'm going to mention name to you, but congratulations for yourself to be able to do it when big, large listed companies cannot make it and fail. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.